The mailed-fist foreign policy of Rome is strikingly evidenced by the complete destruction, within 3 months of each other, of the two major commercial cities of the Mediterranean, Carthage in the west and Corinth in the east. Carthage was raised because of panicky fear of the military revival of Rome's most deadly enemy of the past. According to Livy, the Senate decreed the destruction of Corinth because of the outrage done there to Roman envoys. It is more likely that the act was a brutal warning to the ever troublesome Achaeans. The last of Cato's acts of state is thought to have been the destruction of Carthage. Indeed, it was Scipio the Younger who gave it its death blow, but it was chiefly on the counsel and advice of Cato that the Romans undertook the war, for the following reason. Cato was sent to the Carthaginians to Massinissa, the Numidian, who were at war with each other, to investigate the causes of their dispute. Messenia had been a friend of the Roman people from the beginning, and the Carthaginians had entered into treaty relations with Rome after their defeat by Scipio the Elder, having been deprived of their empire and burdened with a heavy tribute of money. Cato found the city, as the Romans thought, in distress, in low estate, but rather possessing an abundance of men of fighting age, overflowing with great wealth, and filled with arms of all kinds and military equipment, and not a little proud of this. He therefore thought that it was not a time for the Romans to adjust the affairs of Massinissa, and the Numidians, but rather that they themselves would again be involved in the same dangers unless they repressed the city, which had been Rome's ancient, irreconcilable enemy, now so unbelievably grown. Therefore, returning speedily to Rome, he advised the Senate that the former defeats of the Camalides of the Carthaginians had diminished not so much their power as foolhardiness, and were likely to render them not weaker but more experienced in war, that they were but skirmishing the Numidians to prepare themselves for a contest with the Romans, that the peace and treaty were but names to disguise their proposement of war until a proper occasion presented itself. Moreover, they say that, shaking his toga, he purposely let down some African figs in the Senate, and then, on their admiring size and beauty, he said that the country that produced them was only 3 days' sail from Rome, and he was even more violent in this, that whenever he declared his opinion in the Senate on any matter whatsoever, he added the following, and I also think that Carthage must be destroyed. Thus Scipio took Carthage, and he sent to the Senate the following message: Carthage is taken. What are your orders now? When these words had been read, they took counsel as to what should be done. Cato expressed the opinion that they ought to raze the city and blot out the Carthaginians, whereas Scipio Nasica, still advising sparing the Carthaginians, and thereupon the Senate became involved in a great dispute and contention, until someone declared that for the Romans' own sake, if for no other reason, it must be considered necessary to spare them. With this nation for antagonists, they would be sure to practice valor instead of turning aside to pleasures and luxury, whereas if those who were to compel them to practice warlike pursuits should be removed from the scene, they might deteriorate from want of practice through a lack of worthy competitors. As a result of the discussion, all became unanimous in favor of destroying Carthage, since they felt sure that its inhabitants would never remain entirely at peace. The whole city was therefore utterly blotted out of existence. It was decreed that for any reason to settle upon this site should be a cursed act. The majority of the men captured were thrown into prison and there perished, and some few were sold, but very foremost men, together with the hostages and Hasdrubal and Bithias, spent the rest of their lives in different parts of Italy in honorable confinement. Scipio secured both glory and honor and was called Africanus, not after his grandfather, but because of his own achievements. As soon as night fell, the Achaeans who had escaped the Corinth after the battle fled from the city, and most of the Corinthians fled with them. At first, although the gates were open, Memmius hesitated to enter Corinth, suspected that some ambush had been laid within the walls. But on the third day after the battle, he proceeded to storm Corinth and set it on fire. The majority of those found in it were put to the sword by the Romans, while the women and children Memmius sold into slavery. He also sold all the slaves who had been set free and had fought on the side of the Achaeans, but had not fallen at once on the field of battle. The most admired votive offerings and works of art were carried off by Memmius. The less valuable he gave to the Philopoemen, the generals sent by Attalus, and even in my day there were Corinthian spoils in Pergamon. In all the cities that had made war against Rome, Mummius demolished the walls and disarmed the inhabitants before commissioners were sent from Rome. And when these arrived, he proceeded to put down democracies and establish governments based on property qualifications. Tribute was imposed upon Greece, and those who had money were forbidden to acquire property outside their own state. Ethnic leagues, whether the Achaeans or Phocians or Boeotians, or anywhere else in Greece, were likewise all dissolved. After years later, the Romans, taking pity on Greece, restored the old ethnic leagues and the right to acquire property abroad and canceled the fines imposed by Mummius, for he had ordered the Boeotians to pay 100 talents to the people of Heraclea and Euboea, and Achaeans to pay 200 of the Lacedaemonians. The Greeks obtained from the Romans a remission of these payments, but down to my day a governor continues to be sent to the country.